right, welcome back for Film Shake, the 90s Movies Podcast. I'm Jordan.
And this is Nick.
And this is episode 31. We're talking about Hard Rain from 1998. And this is a first-time watch for you, right?
First time I've ever watched this. I don't know how this is the first time I've ever watched this, considering it's got the Slater, it's got peak Morgan Freeman, it's a late 90s action movie. Never watched it. But this flopped at the box office, so I feel like a lot of people probably haven't seen this one.
Yeah, man, I grew up with this one. Like I said on the last episode, was a big fan of it in the late 90s. Big Slater fan, like we've covered many times. But yeah, this was, I wouldn't call this peak Slater, but this was definitely, like you said, it flopped. And it was definitely one of those where I felt like the world around wasn't appreciating my man, Christian Slater, as much as he should be. You know, so it's like one of those underdog movies for me. I'm like, no, people need to watch this. People need to get into this. Hard Rain, but we might discover I have different feelings now, slightly different feelings than I did back in 1998. So we shall see. We shall see how this holds up.
Oh no, I'm worried now. But I have to say, I hope that your opinion of this is higher than what you were punished to watch this episode, which is U-Bowl's 2005 anti-classic. Yes, it's an anti-classic, Alone in the Dark. What did you think about that movie, buddy?
Oh, yes, man. So for Fallen Warrior Review, I was punished to watch this, and yes, I feel like such a fallen warrior. I fell hard upon these rocks, this rocky terrain that is Alone in the Dark. And I actually did watch this alone in the dark by myself, you know, obviously by myself because I was alone, you know, rather than being kind of the suspenseful sci-fi horror-esque video game adaptation that it's supposed to be. I found myself falling asleep. So I watched part of this, and I can't tell you exactly what is happening in this movie or what if there is a plot or not, but I do remember thinking Christian Slater was Christian Slater. He, you know, he's as good as he always is, and I felt like I was expecting this to be really, really terrible, just like Z-level terrible, just from everything I've heard about Uwe Boll. I don't think I'd watch any of his other movies before. But, you know, this started off okay, where it's like, okay, the production value is not bad, and Christian Slater is good. You know, he's not bad. Obviously, I love this guy and enjoy watching him. Fell asleep maybe midway through and tried to finish this on my lunch break today at work, and it really does devolve from there into, like, there's a scene where they're shooting at this alien or supernatural creature. I'm not exactly sure what the creatures are in this movie. It doesn't seem like they can be killed or ever die, but they're just endlessly shooting at them with machine guns, and it literally turns into like a video game, but also B, like a heavy metal music video at some point, or it just like everything turns to black and heavy metal music comes on and they're shooting at this creature in the dark, and there's just lots of lens flare and close-ups on their guns and the bullets and everything. I was just like, what is happening? This is so strange. Like, I thought this was going to be an okay movie, and then from there it was just all bad, man. And I didn't even finish it. I have to say, I'm so sorry.
You didn't?
I didn't fulfill my
Take
complete
your full
punishment. But my lunch break ended. I was like, I don't have time to finish this movie. It was that bad.
Buddy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a few things to say here. The first is, I have to remark on this, and I've already screwed it up. So, listener of the show, patron, and also sometimes guest host, Jonathan Robker, reminded us the actual pronunciation of this director's name is Uwe, like groove, but Uwe Boll.
Uwe.
That's how you say his name. So I've been saying it wrong all this time, including just 5 minutes ago.
We're going to keep that going. We know how we feel about facts on this show, right, Nick? So we're just going to keep the mispronunciation going. If we can, notice how I said mispronunciation. I even mispronunciated that. If we can go a whole episode mispronouncing Ryan Felipe, I think we could go a whole episode mispronouncing Uwe Boll or Boll or however you say his name. Forgive us, listeners. Yeah, I didn't finish this movie. I'm not going to finish knowing how to say this man's name either.
How dare you mispronounce the name of this auteur? For truly that is who this man is. He is an auteur filmmaker. Uwe Boll.
What I felt like was a terrible stylistic choice when this movie turned into a heavy metal music video with gun porn in the background. But that's definitely a stylistic choice. It's definitely has some sort of fingerprint on this movie, but it might be the fingerprint of a terrible sea monster that you never want to visit your hometown.
Yeah, Uwe actually does sound like a sea monster.
Yeah. Fing, fang, foom, Uwe. I don't know.
Oh, Lord. Well, okay. This movie's obviously a train wreck. It's a huge train wreck, but it is based on a video game. You were aware of that, right, before you went in?
Right. Yeah, I think you told me that. And did you watch this?
Yes, Jordan, I watched the whole movie.
Oh, so you could tell me how it ends. You could tell me what the plot is.
I took your punishment for you.
You stood in the gap.
I did. So I don't think anyone cares what the plot of this movie is. My main experience with this movie before was back whenever G4 was on, which I don't think that network exists anymore. They were originally geared toward video games and fans of video games. And Alone in the Dark isn't exactly a game that has a huge fan base, right? I mean, when you think of survival horror type games, you mainly think of Resident Evil and maybe Silent Hill and other games like that. Not really Alone in the Dark, but that is a respected game and a fairly well-respected series, but they're kind of like slow burn psychological horror pieces, right? They're not just all out like European tech metal showpieces like this film is. But
like this movie, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Tara Reid, who I don't think you mentioned, she plays a museum curator and an archaeological genius in this film.
Right. She does not fit that description very well in my mind.
How dare you? How dare you speak ill of the Lady Tara? She was on a press tour junket for this, and they asked her to be on G4, or I guess the movie studio got her on G4 to talk about this movie. And look, I don't know any celebrity. They might all be narcissistic fiends who don't have normal thoughts or emotions like you and I don't have of them either, but I don't know why I would even say that's a negative. But she was on this tour promoting this movie, and the guy who was interviewing her, it was Brendan something, I don't know what happened to that guy. He left G4 shortly after this. He really had a smarty pants attitude. He kept making fun of her. This made me feel bad for her, and almost this movie, but not quite, because he was definitely making fun of the fact that she's playing the scientist and all this stuff, but just the way that he's going about it, it's like, come on, man. You're hitting the apple on the lowest branch with a baseball bat.
She's definitely the low-hanging fruit in this movie, other than, the terrible tech metal like we were talking about. I don't agree with making fun of the actress to her face as you're interviewing her. I think you should go on a podcast and broadcast it to the world instead.
16 years later.
Right, exactly.
Well, I'll tell you what I think really needs to be made fun of in a second, but I did feel bad for her, and she kept saying, well, the fans, meaning like the fans of the game, and he was especially making fun of her saying the fans, like there's a huge fan base for the video game Alone in the Dark. I don't know, it just rubbed me the wrong way. But look, this movie being atrocious, it's not Tara Reid's fault. It's definitely not the Slatesters' fault, because I don't think you can say he does not commit to this role. It's a ridiculous role, but he's himself. I mean, if this movie that he's in was awesome, he would be awesome in it, but this movie sucks.
I felt like he was pretty decent in it. It was just like, it was almost like I could see him struggling through it with Tara Reid being so awful, and he's just like, I'm just being Slater, but I'm giving you my gold. It's just stuck in this train wreck of a movie.
It's a train wreck because Uwe Boll, say what you want about him, he can box. When he has issues with people, he challenges them to boxing matches, and he always wins. But he always loses when he tries to make a film. And you find it right away with this, and the opening voiceover title crawl tries to explain the plot, which obviously didn't help you. It didn't help me much either.
For a minute there, I thought that was going to be the whole movie. It just kept going on. It was like 16 paragraphs, literally, like setting up the backstory of this movie, and I still don't know what the plot is. So good job, narrator, man.
Well, the half the plot is told there, and the other half is told through probably 40 minutes of helicopter shots where you just see a helicopter flying through the sky with a voiceover of Christian Slater talking to someone on the helicopter unseen, 80 yard in.
Pretty rough. There's a lot of ADR.
But I really feel like the keystone shot of Uwe Boll's career, which really just shows you like, okay, this guy has seen a lot of movies, but he doesn't understand why particular things work or the logic behind why things work. And it comes in a scene where a soldier gets attacked by a monster. So in other movies, like say Aliens or anything else, or Alien, the first one, right? You'll have a scene where someone is being stalked by the monster and they're creeping around trying to avoid a monster, and then you get a hard cut to the monster which has found them, and then you get a cut to an exterior, right? And maybe you hear a scream or the wind howling or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It's like a standard in horror movies, and especially creature features. Well, in this movie, we get a scene like that, and then whenever the monster catches up to the guy and you get the shot of the monster doing that, you get the cutaway to the exterior, but then he cuts back to the monster eating the guy immediately, and it's so incompetently done and just so badly, choppily edited and nonsensically edited. It's like he thought, I know that there are exterior shots when things like this happen in other movies, so here it is, but he doesn't get like, it's to punctuate what just happened. And create a transition for another scene. I'm just going to throw an exterior shot into the middle of this action/horror scene for no reason. It's insane.
Maybe it's to psych you out, man. Maybe there's some deep thought in there. He's thinking like, oh, I'm going to show the exterior shot, but then I'm going to cut back to the monster eating him like that. They won't expect that. So he's really, breaking the boundaries of the genre here. I think it's just too much for you, Nick.
It's that next level
too much.
Uwe bullshit.
Next level, man. It's next level.
You can't even comprehend the things he's trying to do.
Can we move on to Hard Rain now?
Decades from now, filmmakers will be trying to imitate the innovations that he showed us in the mid-2000s. We will regret having looked down upon this man, this auteur. Yes, let's please right now stop talking about this and talk about 1998's Hard Rain. So, dude, right away, we already mentioned, I believe, that I had not seen this. My first thoughts watching this, just maybe even 10 minutes in, were it did not look like it was fun to have been an actor in this movie. I'm not saying like there was like a hostile feeling on the set or any kind of abuse going on. I'm just saying you were wet the whole time you were filming this. You were getting rained on. You were in a water tank. It looked not fun to shoot. And I don't think that anyone who was involved in this movie remembers it very fondly, chiefly due to those reasons.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, as impressive as the sets and the water effects and the rain are throughout this, again, rewatching it, that was definitely an aspect that held up for me. It was like, okay, this is impressive. This is, to a degree, ambitious, but I can totally understand what you mean as far as this does not look fun to make. This looks miserable. But all that aside, I do think to a degree it is a fun movie. It does have that going for it. I definitely think it stands out. I mean, it's within the disaster genre of terrible things happening naturally, and then you mix in some crime and some bad guys and some action, and I think it's a nice mixture of those elements. Definitely not something I would want to participate in if I was an actor. Be like, yeah, let's stay away from the all raining whole movie, all at night whole movie, because imagine their sleep schedules are messed up making this as well, unless I guess they're just on a studio lot where they can shoot it like it's night, but it's, they're during the day. But I mean, most of this looked like it had been at least at night, even if they're using a set. But yeah, what did you think of Hard Rain for your first watch?
It sounds like I enjoyed it more than you did. Of course, I didn't have any expectations going in other than knowing that this movie flopped and I never saw it, but it has people I like in it. And it's written by Graham Yost, who also wrote Broken Arrow, which we love. And he
Yeah.
also did things like executive produced Justified and The Americans, really great TV shows. So I generally love everything this guy does.
Wasn't he the writer on Speed too?
He also wrote Speed. Yeah, and
Yeah,
we never
yeah.
covered that, but we love the hell out of that movie. So
Oh yeah.
this movie, I enjoyed it. It's fun. It's also directed by Mikhail Solomon, who really didn't do any movies after this, but he did a lot of TV, and he got nominated for some awards for the TV work he did. But back to Yost, this definitely isn't his sharpest script, and I'll get into my issues with some of the writing and the plotting later, but as far as like Broken Arrow, when you're watching it, like the lines just crackle, and you might think it's just a big dumb action movie, but the writing is just so fun in that one, and it's fun in this, but it doesn't feel as sharp. It's like all that rain kind of blunted away the edges.
Right, for sure. Didn't have that same crackle and pizzazz for me, and just the dynamics between Travolta and Slater and all the tension there, and just the fun kind of over the top goofiness of that movie, even though, like we said, it's not necessarily just a big dumb action movie, Broken Arrow, but yeah, it just has that kind of poppy, pulpy kind of feel to it, where this, like you said, it's all at night, it's raining all the time, and then some of the lines, some of the dialogue just doesn't crackle and snap as much as you would think it would, like from other Yost stuff like Speed or Broken Arrow. So yeah, that was definitely something holding it back for me a little bit here.
I like how it kind of feels like it's in a world where it rains all the time. No, it's definitely in a world unto itself, and I feel like it does a good job of kind of creating this self-contained feeling where you definitely get a sense of this place and what's going on in it. I enjoyed that. I think Christopher Young's score, he has like this really lush score, like he always does. He did the scores for Hellraiser, but he's got like all this kind of like folksy, like harmonica type stuff in there. The score really helps to create that kind of just self-contained world too. So I definitely appreciated the movie for that. I really think there's some really cool directorial touches. Like the movie starts with the Paramount logo, the big mountain, and I love it. Obviously with like the Indiana Jones movies, they all did something with that, and this movie does something really cool where when the word Paramount goes away and the little stars go away, you pan down from the mountain down through the rain to the dam, which this town is being flooded. It's raining like crazy, and there's a dam next to it that's about to overtop, and that's kind of the suspense through 3/4 of the movie up until where it does overtop. And there's just this awesome shot going down to the dam, and then you get this tracking shot over the whole town. This really, I thought it was awesome, this overhead shot, where it just reminded me of, I don't know if you read this book when you were a kid. It's a little golden book classic called Scuffy the Tugboat, where it's about this little tugboat that runs away in a stream when he's with his owner. It's a toy tugboat because he thinks he's made for bigger things, not the bathtub. And he keeps going to like larger bodies of water till he almost gets stuck out at sea at the end. But anyway, there's a part where he's going through a river and there's a rain and a flood just like in this movie. And there's shots of like cows being sandbagged around in little pastures and people trying to save their homes and all this stuff. And it looked right out of that. And I mean that in like the best way possible. I love this opening shot. And it goes all the way down into the town with the sheriff, who's played by Randy Quaid, who we don't see as much now outside of crazy political conspiracy things. But he's really in his element there in the mid-90s as the sheriff in this rainy day and this really bad day he's having. But I feel like I just talked too much. What did you feel about the beginning of this?
No, I agree. That was a highlight of the movie for sure, that opening shot and the pan through the town. And Randy Quaid, just jumping off of that, I do think that he does a great job in this. He stands out as the evil sheriff, and they kind of build some mystery there in the beginning of the movie where you're wondering, it does feel like, okay, there's something going on. There's a darker edge to this guy, but they're not quite revealing it yet. So you're kind of waiting for the ball to drop with him, and eventually does kind of show itself where he was up for election for, I guess, mayor of the town, and
I think just for sheriff, maybe.
Was he up for, okay, re-election for sheriff? He doesn't get reelected, and, there's obviously some animosity between him and the mayor, and, the other deputies all kind of have it out for the mayor in the beginning of the movie. So, there's some darkness there that's brooding, and not quite sure what their plan is. But then, it's revealed later that, Christian Slater, an armored truck driver, and he's trying to transport $3 million with, is it his uncle, Charlie?
I'll just get my issue with the movie out of the way here. I don't know if it was his uncle. I'm not sure what their relationship was. And really, Slater's character, you don't really get any background. So it's tough to really get a sense of who he is, other than he's kind of like, the white hat versus the black hats in the movie. Right. And in Broken Arrow, that works because you find that his character, really all you need to know is that when he was a kid, he thought like, golly gee, I love America and fighter jets. I'd love to fly some fighter jets and protect America. And then his partner, played by Travolta, who's the black hat in the movie, Travolta wears the black clothing and Slater wears white clothing, which he also wears a white t-shirt, and Morgan Freeman wears the black one in this movie. They carry that over. I'm sure that was in Gramio's script or some notes.
Right.
But in that movie, when Travolta goes bad, he's like, well, I must protect the safety of America and mankind, for I am the good guy. And it's fine. Like, he's golly gee, American flag and fighter jet dude. And it's awesome. You get who he is with just even the most basic details. But I didn't really get that here.
In Broken Arrow, he also has more of that kind of like that same Slater sarcasm, like kind of harder edge to him, even though he's all American good guy. I still feel like he kind of has that bad boy attitude. And here I feel like, I don't know if it's Slater aging a little bit more, or if it's just not as sharp in the script, because obviously later he would go on to do the harder edge stuff. I mean, even in Alone in the Dark, he's a little bit more of like a harder edged anti-hero-esque kind of character. But here, I feel like, like you said, he doesn't have much of a backstory. He mentions at one point that he worked selling construction equipment or something, but at the same time, he knows like all these resourceful tricks to get away from the bad guys. Like at one point, he's fleeing on a jet ski and he takes off his tie and he wraps it around the handle of the jet ski to make it keep going as he jumps off, and then it blows up, trying to trick the bad guys. But then Morgan Freeman notices the tie wrapped around the handle. So it's just like, obviously he has all these kind of resourceful tricks and he knows all these things. So I'm expecting, some reveal that he's like ex-military or something. They're up against this guy who's much better than they bargained for, that kind of thing. But no, we don't really get much. He's a little bit just kind of like, I've got to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, which is fine, but I do kind of miss that sarcastic, clever wit that Slater usually has. Here, he feels a little bit more white bread.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like it wouldn't have taken a lot of effort to get those details in. And there's even a scene where I guess we should set the plot up a little more. Ed Asner plays Charlie. They're driving this truck together and they're collecting all this money because the flood is coming, obviously, and all the people who the money is for that they're protecting want it. So they've gone through all the banks by this dam and collected the money. And it's cool the way that they shoot them collecting it. And their opening scene is to make it look like a bank robbery with this low angle and their shotguns dangling. And then you find out, no, they're just collecting the money in an armored truck to bring it somewhere else. But they get into a bit of deep water and the truck stalls. All of a sudden, they're ambushed by a crew led by Morgan Freeman and some other people we're going to talk about in a minute. And Charlie gets shot and he's gone. And I'll spoil it now. The whole movie, it seems like Morgan Freeman and Christian Slater are going to be going head to head. But when you watch the trailers for this and when you look at the poster, you're thinking, I really want them to team up. I don't want these guys to be on the opposite side. And guess what?
Right.
An hour in, they do team up, and it's great. I'm so glad they did.
I know. That is my favorite part.
Oh, yeah. It's what everyone wants from this movie, right?
For sure.
But Freeman is looking at Slater and basically saying, like, did you ever think about taking the money yourself? Because he finds out that it was actually Charlie's plan for the truck to be robbed, and he was going to split it with Freeman. And he says, don't judge him. Like, you never thought about stealing the money. And Slater It's like, no, but then he says, well, yeah, maybe blah, blah, blah. And Freeman's like, no, you didn't. Look at you. White bread goody two shoes, you never ever thought about taking the money. Like, he very astutely judges him. But that still, we already knew that, so it doesn't really reveal any more about the character.
Slater does say Belize at some point where he's like, you ever thought about taking it? And they go back and forth, and there's a moment of silence, and he says, Belize. He's like, what? He's like, yeah, it's a country. He's like, I know it's a country. But he talks about, how it's got the sandy beaches and, obviously, so he's imagined taking the money and running off to this place. And I was a little disappointed that in the end, we don't get like a cutaway to Morgan Freeman and Slater off on like a Belize vacation, where they're just sunning it up on the beach.
I think it's because we're not meant to think like Slater ever actually thought about actually taking the money. I think he just thought, what if I had this much money? I would go to Belize. Not like, I will steal someone else's money and use it to go to Belize.
This is true. See, that's just me wanting the bad boy to come out at him, and then they just never go there.
They don't. He has a sense of humor. He's slightly sarcastic. But like you said, it's Slater being sarcastic, but not quite the edge that we want from him.
Right. They've kind of toned it down a little bit.
Exactly. Not like in Broken Arrow, not like in
Pump Up the Volume.
We did an episode on that.
Heathers even. Yeah. So I wanted to know more about the uncle, or maybe non-uncle, Charlie, who got killed, and he, helped set up the robbery. So what's his backstory? What's his deal? What's his relationship, like you said, with Slater? What was his, I guess, motivation for wanting to take some of the money? Did he need to pay off some medical bills or something? I don't know. I just need a little bit more there. I agree with you. It's lacking a little bit of the depth, but obviously this isn't a late 90s action movie. They're just trying to get us into more rain, get us into some jet ski chases, which are pretty cool. So can't fault it there.
Yeah, that's right, because the Slater gets away from the robbery, unlike poor Ed Asner, who croaks. Ed Asner kind of had a career revival, I feel like, in the 90s, where all of a sudden he was in a lot of stuff for a minute. And I always enjoyed him. I liked him in the Mary Tyler Moore Show. I watched that on Nick at Night when I was a kid. Thought he was awesome. So I like seeing him pop up and stuff. But he's only in this movie for about 10 minutes before he's a goner. And then Slater's on the run, and he's got the money, he hides it, and he knows if the bad guys find out where he hid the money, then they're just going to kill him because there's no reason for him as a witness to stay alive. So his main goals now are to evade the bad guys, and then if he gets caught, not let them know where the money is. So we get some pretty gnarly chase scenes. Like you said, there's a scene where the bad guys break into a jet ski shop and steal jet skis, and they chase Slater through a school, and dude, I feel like jet skis are like the greatest transportational expression of human stupidity. They're like the most useless vapid object. I mean, they're so fun in this scene. But have you ever driven a jet ski before?
Yeah, I went to California one time and rode some jet skis out on the beach, which I agree. And that was in the late 90s. And I feel like the jet ski is almost like your quintessential icon of, like you said, just late 90s stupidity and vapidity. It's just, it's just kind of a ridiculous transportation instrument. It just seems clumsy. You're always bumping into stuff, but at the same time, they try and make jet skis look really cool in movies, and they're always like ramping over things. Yeah, I don't know.
The ones in this one get smashed up real quick. They kind of outwear their welcome fast, which they should, because every time I've ridden one, which I think was twice, both times I was driving it, I was like, yeah, I feel like a tool. I got to get off this thing. No offense to all our jet ski driving listeners. I'm sure.
Right.
I'm sure many of our listeners are listening on jet skis right now down at the lake, and they're like, I already hated you, Nick.
Driving around listening to podcasts on the jet ski.
My bad. I think we buried the lead here that the person who's enjoying the jet skis the most, one of the group of armed thugs, is Michael Gorjan from Salt Lake City Punk.
Oh, I didn't recognize him.
Wait, are you serious?
No, I didn't.
You didn't recognize Heroin Bob at all?
I did not realize this was Heroin Bob, no.
We're going to have to start this episode over. Are you kidding?
We go rewatch this movie now.
Okay, so for our listeners, Michael Gorgian, of course, Heroin Bob from Salt Lake City Punk, he is all over this movie. He is just a ridiculous kind of screw-up character, and Morgan Freeman promised Michael Gorgian's dad that he would look after him, which unfortunately means that everything really goes wrong because Michael Gorgian's character is just a total idiot and a screw-up, but he really has fun riding jet skis for a minute before Christian Slater outsmarts him and he blows it all.
Well, at least he got to ride a jet ski before he got electrocuted to death, so there was that.
Maybe there's some crossover here, like maybe he is Bob, and maybe his dad is really the guy from Salt Lake City Punk that's like paranoid about the CIA and everything, and he was friends with Morgan Freeman's dad, and maybe whenever he dies in this movie, that's why he was dead in the abysmal Salt Lake City Punk sequel, where he's just a ghost talking. Maybe that's what happened.
Movie connection, there you go.
Boom.
That's all you need. I had a question for you as far as what you thought was the best scene, the most thrilling scene out of all our waterlogged moments.
Best scene in the movie. It's obviously, I mentioned it already, the team up between Slater and Morgan Freeman that occurs whenever we finally see that Randy Quaid is a bad dude. He captured the Slater earlier, or not really him, Minnie Driver, who we haven't talked about yet, and I'm going to talk about a lot in a minute. She caught him in her church, which she was restoring, and knocked him out thinking that he was a looter and brought him to the police. And he's stuck in jail, and that's where Randy Quaid learns about the money and where it is. And he decides, screw this working in this town crap. I'm going to get $3 million. So in the scene where Slater is taking Morgan Freeman to the money finally, Randy Quaid's already there and already has the money, and he wants to kill all the witnesses, and that means taking out the Slater and Morgan Freeman, and watching Morgan Freeman and the Slater turn their guns on Randy Quaid together, that was just pure bliss. That was pure late 90s action movie bliss. I love that scene. I love the part where the bullet goes through the dude's eyeglasses and through the back of his head. I mean, that was pure 90s action. That's a great scene for me. That was my favorite.
Nice. Yeah, so great scene. For me, I'd have to say the best scene was Slater locked in the jail before that. And as he's, trying to get out as the water's rising. So, classic disaster moment. This is really one of the more disaster-y elements that they tie in instead of, because a lot of the movie is him running from Quaid or running from Freeman. But they do have some cool moments where, the water and the disaster of the dam overtopping in this town affects some things in a pretty dangerous way for the character. So yeah, he's locked in the jail. The keys are right there on the desk. The desk starts to float because of the water, and he's trying to get the keys to get out, and he can't get out, and the water's rising, and it's going up to the top of the jail, and he finds his flashlight and unscrews the flashlight, uses it as a snorkel to get air. He's poking it above the water, like right into the light fixture. And then finally, right at the last moment, Minnie Driver is opening up the light fixture from the top of the roof, conveniently able to get through, access inside the jail cell, I guess, so she can get him out. But there's a cool shot of the water rising above the flashlight snorkel that he's using, and bubbles coming up, and he's starting to drown, and then she finally is able to get him out. I just thought all that really worked. It was really thrilling, and I liked that disaster element that they bring into it, in the midst of all the action, shoot 'em up, blow 'em up scenes. So they do have a scene later where Minnie Driver is handcuffed to some stairs in a house in a similar situation. The water's rising, and she's got to unscrew the different parts of the stairs so she can go higher and higher to try and outrace the water rising. And, it worked. I didn't feel like it was quite as effective or thrilling as that first scene, because it's kind of like, okay, we've already done that. We've already, had a character fear for their life because of the rising water. It is still creative in its own way, but...
Well, I'm going to work my way backwards through that. So the reason that she was tied up in that later scene is because she was put there by a character played by actor Mark Rolson, who is the 90s go-to rapist. He is, of course, in another movie with Morgan Freeman in the 90s, one of my favorite movies of all time, The Shawshank Redemption, where he frequently raped Tim Robbins' character. And now he wants to rape Minnie Driver here. He's one of the policemen, and since everything's gone to crap, And Minnie Driver has been knocked out. He thinks, well, yeah, might as well just take her to her house and rape her while the town's flooding.
Do you think that was a nod to, Shawshank? It's like, oh yeah, Morgan Freeman. Yeah, let's get this guy raping some more people.
Yeah, he's got a creepy raper mustache. Let's get him in here.
He does have that mustache.
This guy might be the nicest guy in the world, but he's really believable as a rapist. Like, he's alarmingly believable as a rapist. I'm sure he's a teddy bear in real life. But hey, the first scene that you set up with Slater drowning, no matter what you think about the rest of this movie, that really a virtuoso suspense sequence. Like, the amount of imagination that went in that one scene, like, just him using the flashlight as a snorkel was genius. And the way they even start the scene, where it's a cut to him on the cot that he's laying in the cell, and it's just his face, and then his eyes open, because he hears the water running under the cot and the room flooding, and he wakes up, and there's water all under the floor, and then everything just happens so fast. It's such a suspenseful scene, and I really love whenever she's saving him and unscrewing the vent, whenever there's like just a millisecond where she looks at him and smiles, that I thought was great. And this is where I'm going to talk about Minnie Driver. I'll actually get this out of the way first. Minnie Driver is British. Her accent in this film is, I don't know what it's supposed to be.
I don't know what it's supposed to be either. It felt like they dubbed like every line she said in this movie to make her try and sound American. Because it seemed like she was dubbed like ADR the whole movie. I was like, wait, she's supposed to be British. I need my Minnie Driver to be British. I don't know what's happening in this movie. Because she's got such a, I don't know, endearing British accent. I know that makes me sound like I enjoy a British stereotype, but I do. I mean, I love the British accent, and I love Minnie Driver's British accent, and I love Good Will Hunting, and I just need more Good Will Hunting Minnie Driver. Because the 90s, man, and it's so good. I need that, and I was disappointed.
Yes, I do wish that she spoke in her regular accent as well, but her energy is just so great in this movie. I'm a big fan of hers. To me, she closely resembles my wife, and she has a similar energy to her. Of course, I didn't know my wife when I was watching Minnie Driver in movies in the 90s, but she reminds me of that a lot. And really, I became a fan of hers after Grosse Pointe Blank the year before this, where she also, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've seen it, even though I do love that movie. I need to watch it again. We need to cover it. But I think she has a fake accent in that too. But
yeah,
I really enjoyed her in this movie. She's a lot of fun. Her and Slater do have pretty good chemistry in the scenes that they have together. And it kind of also reminds you a little bit of how they brought Samantha Mathis into Broken Arrow, but she doesn't have as much agency as Samantha Mathis, obviously, who has a gun and shoots people and stuff in that movie.
Right.
Minnie Driver does get a gun at one point in this, but unfortunately it's not loaded, and it doesn't work out for her, and some men have to save her. She's not quite given the agency that Samantha Mathis was, but I did enjoy her a lot in this, even though.
And again, they don't kiss, man. I'm just going to bring it back to my only complaint with Broken Arrow. They got great chemistry. Got Samantha Mathis right there. And you got Graham Yost, who wrote Speed. Classic ending where Keanu and Sandra just make out while the credits roll. And once again, I'm waiting for it here. I need my male lead and my female lead to, spark a romance after their 8-hour traumatic journey. I need this relationship to be fully developed, by the end of this hour and a half, or it's just not taking me there. But no, I don't actually think that. I think it's fine, and it's kind of refreshing not to have that sometimes. No, I enjoyed Minnie Driver in this as well. Sans the fake accent, but I like the detail that she's restoring the church and she's working on these stained glass windows. They keep going back to the shots of the stained glass windows as they're hiding out in this church. At one point, she's off somewhere about to be raped by Billy Bob Mustache. Morgan Freeman and Christian Slater hanging out in the church, and they keep doing these close-ups on these windows, and they're kind of under siege where evil Sheriff Randy Quaid and his boys are outside trying to smoke them out with some Molotov cocktails and whatnot. And they set the church on fire. But then, finally you got to bring it back to the jet ski. Is it the jet skis? Did the jet skis come back there, or is it just a boat?
It's just the boats, man.
It's just
jet
the boats.
Skis were done skis by this point.
Okay. They already blew up the jet skis, but they do crash through the stained glass windows with the boats. And so these stained glass windows are going out in style at some point. And I love there's a moment where they crash through the windows and it's total late 90s CGI where a piece of the stained glass done in CG flies at the camera, and it's like the face of Jesus or one of the saints or something on the windows, but they totally just throw that in there for added effect. And I thought that was pretty ridiculous, but I loved it all the same.
Yeah, gratuitous awesomeness. And of course, this being a grandiose joint, we get an awesome final line where, like you said, they don't kiss, but she does ask about the church and what state it's in, since she wasn't there when all that stuff happened. Oh, I'm failing because I wrote the last line down, but I didn't write the setup for it, so it makes no sense. But if you've seen it, then you'll know why. The Slater tells her it's probably why they felt safe enough to drive their boats through the stained glass windows. So there you go. No context for that line. Total failure.
I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. He mentioned the fire, and she said, a fire? He's like, oh, it was a small fire. That's probably why they felt okay driving their boats through it.
That's why the two of us do the show together.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you.
So we can help each other out. But no, and then you go to a kind of cheesy freeze frame where she looks at him like wide-eyed and shocked, and then it's just freeze frame, roll credits, which I thought was kind of a fun way to end the movie, but also like, that's how we're going out? I don't know. It felt a little uneventful. It was just like, okay, we could have, I don't know, ended on something else.
I mean, it was abrupt.
I need my credit roll while they kiss, man. It's just what I need.
You needed it to go full Tremors, like they kiss and we don't cut to black. Like the camera just slowly pans up to the raining sky, or maybe there's like a crane shot of the camera just
crane
back
shot of the rain flooded town as they stand on the one rock that is not submerged as they embrace each other and kiss. And Morgan Freeman is like slinking off in the background with his bag of money, because yes, he does get away, he does get his bag of money. Christian Slater lets him go, but you know, he's a good old boy, so he's got to return the rest of it, because the police show up at the end and all is well. So yeah, we just ran through this whole movie in 48 minutes. So
it's an hour and a half long movie, and honestly, I did enjoy it. My score is a 7 out of 10. I watched it twice, and I enjoyed it both times. But I kind of feel like they could have cut like 10 minutes out. Like there's this whole subplot with Betty White and her husband where she's just smashing his dignity and just crushing him constantly with her words. And then she kind of gets her comeuppance, and it's kind of pointless. I know they needed to have some more character and flavor to the town and some more hostages when the bad guys need them, but that felt like a little useless. I mean, Betty White kind of did this whole like heel turn in the 90s with this in Lake Placid, and that's not really the Betty White I want. But I feel like that could have maybe gotten chopped out a little bit there. But yeah, 48 minutes to talk about this. That sounds about right. I'm fine with it. Yeah. I have a few more things to say, but I'm fine with it.
Yeah, some of those plot elements do feel a little fluffy. They do feel a little light. So it's like we could have done without that, or we could have had something a little bit more sharp, a little bit more impactful. But it is what it is. I feel like it's an average action film. I'm like, obviously I've been talking about it, I'm not too high on it. It's kind of a disappointment to remember something so fondly. Like obviously at the end of the last episode you told us that we're gonna watch this, and I was so pumped, and then watched it and I was like, it was all right, it's not too bad, but not as great as I remembered it to be. I'd give it like a 3 out of 5. It was probably feeling like a 4 out of 5 before watching it, and now, it's kind of gone down a little bit. So that's always a little sad, but it's all good. I still love Slater in this, and Morgan Freeman. Really enjoy his turn from bad to good, because obviously, Morgan Freeman can never really be a bad guy, in anything. He is God after all, right?
That's his complaint, though. Did you see the reason that he will not recommend this movie to anyone is basically he died at the end, I think, of the original script and cut, and people were like, no, you can't kill Morgan Freeman. So in his own words, he's like, so not only did they let me live, which I definitely shouldn't have done because I was the bad guy who kicked the whole thing off, they let me get away with some of the money. Can you believe that?
Right.
Like, don't watch this movie. It's totally ridiculous.
He's trying so hard. Yeah, he's trying so hard to be the bad guy, and they just like pull it out from under him. He's like, oh man, like people love me too much.
And even in this, you can see just how outstanding of an actor he is. There's one shot where Slater basically accuses him of killing Ed Asner's character on purpose so that he could take a share of the money once he finds out they were in cahoots. And Morgan Freeman makes this face, and it's just for like a second, but you can tell that is not true. And he was friends with Ed Asner, and he takes extreme offense to what just happened, and he should kill Slater right now for even suggesting that, but he won't because he shouldn't. And he conveys all of that in like a split second, and it's over. But it's amazing. I mean, he's obviously one of the best actors that we have. He's still kicking now. That's there. The power of Morgan Freeman is in this movie, even if, you know, he maybe doesn't look back finally on being rain-soaked for months at a time and getting test grouped back into the movie whenever he really would have died at the end.
I just realized another movie connection too with another film that we've covered. You know, they Morgan Freeman and Christian Slater both being in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Yeah, that's right. They were in. Well, Morgan Freeman was, I would say he's the total white hat in that movie. He's definitely the moral voice throughout that film, whereas Slater is really the Slater that we expect in most movies, where he's definitely got an attitude problem. He definitely doesn't get to be the cool Slater because Costner is constantly trumping him until he finally just gives in and supports Costner. But yeah, good call on the connection there.
Total lame turn there, man. Just still can't forgive that movie for putting him down like that and lifting up Costner. As we know, I have my hatred for Costner, but that's all right. It'd be funny
if he showed up at the end of this. It was like, no, I'm the hero. Like he just shows up as like he's the police at the end, like the National Guard led by Kevin Costner.
He probably was.
Yeah. You know, there's another connection here with Broken Arrow, which you can tell this is like a Graham Yost thing, where whenever Quaid kind of gets taken out at the end, it's a fake out. But Morgan Freeman jumps a boat over a house that's floating that's been pulled away by the flood when the dam finally burst. And there's the really great miniature work throughout this movie, and I definitely prefer it to CGI. But the last shots where it really has to take on a lot and show a lot, it doesn't quite hold up. But there's a pretty awesome stunt where Freeman jumps a boat over a smashed house through the air, and it soars over Quaid's head, and Quaid's like, you missed me. But guess what? The motor fell off of the boat, and it's also soaring through the air, just like the nuclear warhead at the end of Broken Arrow, and it hits Quaid smack on, but it doesn't kill him. It's a fake out, and he ends up getting shot at the end by everybody, which is not quite as satisfying as if maybe they showed a close-up of the rotor from the motor chewing him to bits. That doesn't happen. But, I mean, all that was cool. That last scene was fun.
I definitely felt that I wanted the motor just chewing him up as he got hit by it. But yeah, then they unload like 16,000 rounds into Quaid when he pops back up, which was pretty ridiculous.
In slow-mo, obviously.
In slow motion, yeah, both of them shooting him as Minnie Driver cowers. Which, yeah, like you said, not quite as satisfying as I think they wanted it to be, and, you know, the cool action moment that it was supposed to be, but, you know, what are you going to do? So, it's raining, let's get the hell out of here. It's probably what they're thinking.
Yeah, and they already had the perfect 90s action moment just a few minutes before, and I just have the note that says, damn dude meaning the guy that was on top of the dam that Quaid deputizes to come help him be a bad guy near the end of the movie. I have damn dude's explosion death with gas tank plus shot of hat falling into the water equals 90s perfection. Which, of course, this guy is grabbing onto something and a gas tank floats into him and explodes and blows him to bits, and then his hat slowly floats down into the water. It's
right.
awesome.
That's the 90s action, like disaster movie stuff that you are waiting for, because it's just out of nowhere, just happens to be floating by, and then the tank explodes like right as he's trying to climb up this ladder and blows him up. So it doesn't make any logical sense, or it's beyond, you know, your suspension of disbelief, but damn if it's not cool. So let's do it, you know.
It was really cool. I also like how they keep showing the statue in the middle of town that's holding the sword up in the air, and they keep cutting to it throughout the movie, and the water level getting higher. And then later it's a plot point because no one can see it, and one of the boats hits it and flies up into the air and flips over. I thought that was cool.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, will not flip over. It's, it factors into the plot. I enjoyed that. Nice
For
continuity, sure. Mikhail Solomon.
Good job. Good job. Yeah, some cool action stuff in this for sure. Again, I always kind of go back to the writing and the dialogue is what really wins me over. And again, our forte on this show is the kind of more like goofy, fun, over the top stuff. And there was definitely bits and pieces of that here. But like you said, some of the edges felt a little worn off and is not quite as goofy and ridiculous as I tend to sway towards.
Yeah, it could have leaned a little more into certain things and probably worked better. I do enjoy it. I do think I'm going to watch this again. And definitely, since I know this is kind of more of, I don't know if I would call it a cult classic because I don't think it has a cult following, but I do think a lot of people who enjoy 90s action flicks who haven't seen this would probably enjoy it. It only made like 17 mil in the theater on a 70 million budget. So obviously a lot of people didn't. And I don't think it made that back on rentals. So this is a pretty underseen film, but hey, it's on Amazon Prime and different other things. You can watch it for like $3 or $4. I say do that if you like any of these actors or you like dumb 90s action movies.
For sure. I'd definitely still recommend it. It's worth a watch if you've never seen it, for sure. I feel like I'm bad mouthing it more than I want to. So I don't want to come down too hard on this. I still think it's enjoyable. It's definitely watchable. It's not bad. It's just not as awesome as I remembered it being. So
there you
take that with what you will.
Yes. So, hey, look, Jordan, I did that thing I almost never do that we're supposed to do, and I have a movie connection for this with our last movie, Anaconda.
All right, give it to us.
All right, so there's the easy one, which is obviously that Anaconda took place in a rainforest, the tropical rainforest of the Amazon. And look, here we are. We're in a movie where it literally rains the entire movie. It rains more in this movie than it does on an average day in the Amazon. So that's an easy connection. But actually, I found another connection in this movie. It's kind of a bummer. We didn't really talk about Ricky Harris's character in this movie, Ray, Bible-quoting bad guy. He was with Freeman's team, and he does a pretty good job into this. And then he gets killed, and I was bummed. I kind of wanted him to make it a little further into the movie. And actually, this is an actor that I'm a fan of. He was in... Did you ever watch Everybody Hates Chris?
No.
It's a show about Chris Rock's childhood, and he narrates it. It's a really fun show, but he plays like neighborhood nightmare Malvo, where he kind of just terrorizes everyone, and everyone just kind of accepts him. And he's just kind of like buddies with everyone too, but also like, he steals money from them and threatens them, but also like he's just the pal you talk to sometimes. So he was really good in that show, but unfortunately passed away in 2016. And guess who paid their respects to Ricky Harris? Our old buddy Ice Cube from Anaconda. So there you go, a little more poignant movie connection there.
Sad to see him go. Yeah, I did enjoy him in this movie and the Bible quoting. And then at one point, he quotes somebody else. He's like, I ran out of Bible quotes.
It was Bruce Springsteen. He quotes Bruce Springsteen's The River.
The River. Yeah, The River. Well, cool. Thank you for that movie connection. I think it's time now to move into our trivia battle.
Hold it! Pop quiz, hotshot.
Perfect. Well, I don't know about you, but I have a theme for mine. And this is a disaster movie. Not a disaster of a movie, because we enjoyed it, even if we didn't enjoy it as much as we could have. But it's not only an action film, it's a disaster film, because it's about a flood. And there are lots of scenes of water destroying buildings and cars and people and boats and jet skis. So it's a disaster movie. And all of my questions are based on disaster films, Jordan.
Hey, I went the similar route. Disaster movies is my theme as well. But guess what, Nick?
Do I want to know?
Little friend Fred Willard's going to help me out with that. So I'm going back to the book. He's got a section on disaster movies, so I couldn't pass it up.
You son of a bitch. You son of a bitch. Why do I keep doing this show with you? You damn Fred Willard book. That thing is evil. It's black. It's got some kind of black magic spell on it that you never run out of Fred Willard questions. Like, how is that possible? You've literally asked me over 20,000 questions from this damn book. That's Fred Willard isn't really dead. His spirit just passed to some realm where he can continuously transport questions to this book for you. Like, how did you capture his spirit? Like, let it go, man. Let him be at peace.
Can't, man. He's keeping me going. He's helped me out. So I will never lose. I will never lose with the help of Fred Willard, but that's not true. I'm pretty sure I've lost plenty of times using this book as well. So you don't have to fear that much. I'm probably still going to lose, knowing my luck.
All right, well, I'll ask my question first. since I'm looking
All
at
right.
it. Who directed the 1974 Charlton Heston starring disaster film Earthquake? Was it A, Cecil B. DeMille, B, George Stevens, C, Mark Robson, D, Franklin J. Schaffner?
Was it Franklin J. Schaffner?
Wrong, it was Mark Robson.
Ah, gotcha. All right, yeah, that was pretty hard. Here we go. My first question.
Are you thumbing through the pages looking for the question?
I'm looking for a good one. No, I'll just go with this one. What tagline was used for War of the Worlds 2005? Was it A, they're already here, B, they only want one thing, destruction, C, this time it's war, or D, it's closer than you think?
Was it they're already here?
Let's see.
Oh, gosh. You don't even know the answer to your own questions.
It was they're already here. You got it right.
Oh, good. Good. That movie, for me, was really disappointing. Spielberg, I don't know what point it was. I'd say probably post-Saving Private Ryan. Like, all the endings to his movies just got inexplicably happy. Like, no matter what kind of logic had to be disregarded. Because that dude's kid should have been dead, man. Like, there's no way. That was dumb. He should have been dead, too. That was just stupid.
I remember people being really hard on it, but I have good memories of it. I remember enjoying it. I don't remember the emotional beats of it. I do remember enjoying, like, some of the action and the destruction and everything. So
I mean, the visuals in the first 30 minutes are, like, incomparable. They're amazing.
yeah,
He's a great
for
visualist.
sure.
But everything after that is lame. All right, here's my next question. Which one of these actors did not appear in 1972's The Poseidon Adventure? Was it A, Shelley Long, B, Leslie Nielsen, C, Ernest Borgnine, D, Roddy McDowell?
Damn it! Why are you pulling out all these questions?
Have you not seen that?
No, I haven't. I'm vastly lacking in my knowledge of like 70s disaster movies, even though I love 70s so much. I have not seen a lot of the disaster movies. Man, and I know those movies have like 700 actors.
I'm in this movie, dude, and it came out before I was born.
Was it Shelley Long?
That's correct.
Oh, nice. Total guess.
You got it.
Good deal. Let's see. Let me flip through here.
This is going to go from possibly our shortest episode to our longest, just based on the length of time you're taking to flip through the pages of your damn Willard book.
What is used to destroy the aliens in the 1962 classic Day of the Triffids? Is it A, bacteria, B, an atom bomb, C, sulfuric acid, or D, water?
Is it bacteria?
Nope, it was water.
Oh, the same as signs. All right, my question. 1970's Airport is the first in the Airport series. How many films are in this series? A, 3, B, 4, C, 5, D, 7.
My instinct is to say 3. I'm just going to go with that.
Wrong, there's 4 of them. And I've seen them all, Jordan. I've seen all 4
man.
Airport movies. Not even the first one is really that good. I mean, Airplane, which spoofs them, is way better than the actual movies it's spoofing, I think.
Yeah, well, might have to just go back and rewatch Airplane then. All right, so next question, and this is going to tie in nicely to Hard Rain. So what role does Morgan Freeman play in the 1998 disaster movie Deep Impact? Was he A, an astronaut, B, U.S. president, C, astronomer, or D, reporter?
Dude, he's the president.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. But I had to get he's got that in the book, and it's Morgan Freeman, so I had to throw that in there.
That's one of the worst movies I've seen 17 or 18 times.
Oh my gosh.
I can't wait to cover that one. We're definitely doing a double episode with Armageddon in that. And we'll try to figure out which one's better, finally. Like, we can give the definitive answer there.
I don't even know if I've seen all of Deep Impact, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say Deep Impact. It's Armageddon, man.
I don't know. There's
Anyway.
some stuff in there. All right. That will be a future episode then.
At least you got Steve Buscemi in Armageddon, I guess. All right.
All right, let's go. Before I researched for these trivia questions, I had never even heard of 1978's Avalanche, described by Golden Raspberry Award founder John Wilson's book, The official Razzie Movie Guide is one of the 100 most enjoyably bad movies ever made. That's 1978's Avalanche, Jordan. Who starred in this film?
Oh, God.
Was it A, Charlton Heston, B, Rock Hudson, C, Roy Scheider, or D, Robert Shaw?
Avalanche. I feel like I've heard a movie podcast recently talk about Avalanche. Was it Rock Hudson?
Damn it! You stayed alive!
Yes. Nice. Thank you, Pure Cinema Podcast.
And I will say, damn you, Pure Cinema Podcast. Could have been done.
Could have been done, but too bad it's not. Man, I feel like all these are so easy.
It's another half hour of you thumbing through pages now. We're now 4 hours into this episode.
Right. These are so easy. Man, I could just give it to you, but I don't want to.
I wrote my questions, Jordan. I did research and wrote these down.
You did. All right. This sounds hard. Let's go with this. What disaster film was based on a book by Sebastian Junger? Was it A, Gray Lady Down, B, The Perfect Storm, C, The Poseidon Adventure, or D, White Squall?
That name sounds really familiar. I think it was The Perfect Storm.
You got it. It's Perfect Storm.
Yay!
Perfect storm of trivia where I lose once again.
I've seen all the movies I asked you questions about, by the way.
Well, good job. You've done your homework on 70s disaster movies. I need to get on that. I'm too busy like in the crime, gritty noir kind of stuff from the 70s right now, so I've got to move on to the disaster. But I don't know, for some reason those movies just never really appealed to me, never really grabbed me like I really want to see that. And I think it had to do with some lousy covers, like just, because sometimes it's hit or miss with movies from the 70s where it's just like, okay, that looks a little cheesy or cartoonish just based on the cover. Wasn't around obviously when those movies were coming out. Yeah, man, tell me a good one to start off with and recommend one for our listeners as well.
I watched all of those movies because of Independence Day. When I saw that in 1996, I thought, you know what, I like this movie. I should watch other disaster movies. That would probably be fun. And you know what, Jordan? It really wasn't the most fun I've had. A lot of the 70s disaster movies are really tedious. The large cast are just really totally ridiculous. And I'd say just watch Airplane. Some stuff in that movie might be offensive now. I haven't watched it since I was in high school. So if it is, I'm sorry about that. But I do remember enjoying that way more than all the movies it parodied. I'd also say watch Concorde, which is the fourth airport movie, just because it sucks. And if you want to watch something that sucks, watch the fourth airport movie. For some reason, it focuses on a Concorde jet this time, just to try to make things slicker. That's what I'd say do. Watch one of those.
All right, so watch Independence Day, check. And then watch Airplane, check. All right, I'll make that happen.
There you go.
All right, so what am I being punished with this time? Again, another punishment.
It's available on streaming services. You may have to pay a rental fee to watch it. But this movie is Grizzly 2 Revenge. This is an action thriller horror film that was originally filmed in Hungary in 1983. However, it was only released in 2020, Jordan.
Oh, wow.
We were deprived of this film for almost 40 years, Jordan.
I'm looking at the cast here so I can see the movie connection already.
That's right. So our next episode, we're really excited about this. We're going to have our good friend Douglas McCambridge back on. He did a show with us about The Frighteners for Halloween last year, and he's a huge fan of 1990s Hot Shots. And Hot Shots' 30th anniversary is coming up in July, so we wanted Doug to come along to talk about it, and I figured let's do another Charlie Sheen. And I remembered seeing that this is a movie you couldn't watch from a long time ago, that Charlie Sheen is on the cover along with George Clooney and Laura Dern. It looks so bad. It looks like one of the worst movies ever made. But hey, it's a movie, and we're both going to watch it, Jordan. I'm assigning it to both of us. I hope Doug will watch it. I'm not going to blame him if he doesn't, but he watched Mosquito with us last time, so maybe he'll watch this too.
I think you will. And when did you say this originally was made?
1983.
Okay. And it's a sequel to a 1976 movie, and that didn't come out until 2020. Wow, man. 37 years in the making. That's the tagline. This is going to be great. This is going to be great. I can feel it. All right. Yeah. I hope Doug will watch it with us. I've got to complete this movie. I'm not going to punk out like I did with Alone in the Dark and just fall asleep halfway through.
Thank you.
Well, yes, I'm looking forward to Hot Shots with Doug. That's going to be a good time.
That's right. We have to end the show with something that we're going to be doing for the next, after the show, we'll have 5 more shows to do it. We have a Patreon, and we have a tier, which we are limited to 8 people, where you get to request 2 movies every year, and you also get a sub sandwich named after you. It was the Gimme 2 special. That has run out. We do have 8 people on that tier now, so it no longer exists. We do still have other tiers, so if you're interested in supporting us through Patreon, that's there. There's some other tiers. But unfortunately, you won't get a sub named after you. That was only for the first 8 $5 tier folks. And this week, we've made it to our good friends, Neil and Jess. Or my good friends. You don't know them. I've traveled cross-country to hang out with them, and they've traveled cross-country to hang out with me.
Hey, I communicated with them on Twitter. I mean, that's equivalent. That's equivalent to a cross-country road trip to hang out, right?
It's equivalent to flying in an airplane.
Yeah. It's still cross-country communication, you know?
And I thought really hard about their sandwich because Neil goes by the Big Frickin' Swede because he is of Swedish descent, and I thought we could do something with Swedish meatballs, but that's just so generic and easy. I don't want to do that. So here's what I did instead. So Neil teaches, he's a college English teacher, and Jess is a librarian, and I thought, you know what? The best option here is a play on words. So are you ready for this sandwich, Jordan?
I want to hear it. I'm titillated.
All right, for Neil and Jess, that's right. It's time for the Neil and Jess Pray You Don't Die. This puntacular sandwich has no mercy, attacking the digestive system from the mouth on down with layer upon layer of tongue-punishing heat. Have something to say? Too bad, because the only thing your mouth will be able to do is cry literal tears of pain at the unceasing waves of fire radiating off this sandwich. Ghost pepper flakes? You're damn right I did. Ridiculous Cajun hot sauce straight from the fiery swamps at the delta of the river Styx? The devil made me do it. A deviled egg? Why the hell not? Will the sweet, sweet lords of taste bud sanctity have mercy on anyone who eats this sandwich? Better kneel and just pray you don't die. So thanks, guys. Thanks for the support. I'm going to make and eat the sandwich, and I might die. I will kneel and just pray I don't.
Can you mail me a piece of this sandwich, or just bring it to the library and shove it in my mouth? Because I want to experience intense ghost flake pepper pain.
Actually, I've raised ghost pepper plants in my garden at my house and then dried them out and flaked them. So I have a jar full of ghost pepper flakes. So they will be going on this thing. And those suckers are hot, dude.
That is some commitment to this podcast, growing your own plants, harvesting them, making a Subway sandwich out of them or with them as an ingredient.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's some dedication, folks. If you want to support that kind of dedication, where Nick is growing his own plants for this podcast, then you want to go to patreon.com/filmshake and subscribe to one of our tiers.
Right on. Good times. Great movies. One of the hosts will be with us next week.
I was tempted to say that.
Next week. Not next week. Unfortunately, we're not that prolific, but hey, in a few weeks.
Good times. Had fun with this one, even though a little let down for Hard Rain. If it was my pick next time, I would have boosted us with some more Slater. So we might have even more Slater coming down the pike soon. So stick around for that as well. And until then, we'll catch you next time for more Film Shake.
Take it easy. Hot Shots episode. Hot Shots. Wow. I almost said Hot Sluts. Hot Shots episode coming down the pipe. It's getting late when my mind is going to that place.
That's on my different podcast. Joke.
So your name is JC Courtney.
Sorry, guys. All right. Well, yeah.